not? Okay,
Okay,
now
here we
it's okay now.
go.
Yes, finally we're here. Great,
Perfect.
great. So, how are you going?
Good. I was just, I misunderstood the timetable, so I thought it was like later than, this is a time difference we have.
Yes. I know. Pardon me. That was because of me. Okay, so Carolina, do you want to introduce yourself to our friends briefly? Just
Yes, of course. I'm Carolina. People call me Carola. That's the name on my profile. I teach English. I have a group in high school. They're about 16 years old, and I also train teachers in a teacher education program. And well,
okay, very good. So as everyone knows, as today session and also the topic is about learning motivation. So now I want to truly express first of all my gratitude for you to dedicate your time here, and I am very happy to have you here. So let me start with a question. Carolina, what is motivation, first of all? How do you define motivation?
well, this is a nice question. I think it's very difficult to define motivation, but it's like a desire to do something. That's something you can read in lots of books. And if you really want something, it's easier to get it. So if students want to learn, if they're motivated to learn, learning happens a lot easier than if they are forced to or they just have to do it, right?
Exactly. Yes. Okay, now, Carolina, you told me that you're a teacher right now, but tell me, how is your relationship with your own students? How do you like it, or I don't know, is there any challenge you have ever faced with the motivation of your learners or not? Can you just elaborate on that?
Yes, in our culture, teachers and students have a kind of informal relationship. I don't know if it's the same over there, but we
somehow yes.
Yes. Oh, great. There's not like a long distance between them and us. So my relationship is usually, I try to know them. I try to bond as much as possible, know what they like. And I really like it when they remember us as people, not just teachers. Okay. So I try to work a lot on that. I try to remember their names as soon as possible and interact with them in the class or outside if necessary. And some of them even follow us on social networks, and that's kind of weird because we are like old people who don't belong to their friends, and they still choose to follow us, and I think that's nice also.
Very good. Okay, now let me know how much choice do you give to your learners in the classroom?
Well, this is interesting because I talked about this with Scott Thumbrey on Monday, and I strongly believe that we should give students choice. But I also know it's not always possible. I'm privileged because I have a small class. They are 19, so I can kind of provide choice. I wouldn't say that choice is available in one moment, like because I go crazy dealing with 5, 6 different activities at the time. But I do try to include different kinds of activities to appeal to different kinds of students in different lessons.
Yeah.
So maybe one lesson is more visual, more grammar based, more I don't know, or another lesson is more like with a song or video. So I try to vary the resources, and that is the way I understand choice in a realistic way.
Okay, so you mean you don't always give them the options, huh? Just you try to limit them. And let me know, Carol, does it refer to the age of the learners? I don't know, the level of their English, or it doesn't make any difference?
Yes, I think that the situations that limit my choices would be that I don't have the time sometimes. You know, in Argentina, we are not very well paid. So we need to have a lot of jobs in order to make a living, and that's
it's
hard.
The same here.
Okay, great. So
yeah,
I don't have the time to design 10 possible activities for one lesson only and provide feedback to all the different students in one lesson. That's not possible for me. So what I do try, I'm very practical. So if it doesn't work in daily life, it's over. try to provide options. I did, for example, there was an exam once in which I grouped them into three, and they had to do different things in the exam, but I was assessing the same. It was not English as a foreign language. I was teaching content, like pedagogy content. And one group had to design a mind map and explain it. Another group had to design a PowerPoint presentation and explain it. And another group had to act out an interview with the author of the books we were reading. And then they all showed what they had done, and they kind of learned from the situation. And I was able to assess them while they were preparing the activity and then while they were talking. And, that was a window of choice.
Great. Now, Carol, tell me, do your words as the teacher contribute to a growth mindset or a fixed mindset among the learners? Which one do you, let's say, think about yourself? Which one do you consider?
Wow. Do you mean the things I do in the classroom, or?
No, just in case of your own speech. The words that you use, does it help the learners to grow their mind, I don't know, to expand their knowledge, I mean their mind, their critical thinking, something like this? Or no, you try to limit them with your own words?
In the high school where I work, their level of comprehension is not enough to do a lot of stuff. So I base my teaching on input. I strongly believe, Scott said it, Stephen Krashen, somebody I really admire, says the same, and it's all about input. So the only way to learn a language is to be exposed to it. So I bring exposure to the classroom in videos, because they are prepared to understand videos, and stories. I tell them stories that I believe might. So I tell them, for example, I tell them about a trip of mine, so I show them pictures. I use gesture in my speaking, and I ask them to listen to that story, and then I try to assess what they understood. And the way I speak in a kind of roughly tuned way, I try to adapt my language to what they can understand, because if there is no understanding, learning is impossible. In higher education, in higher education, there's a lot of critical thinking. I challenge them permanently.
Great, thank you.
Carol, I have many of them here. For example, I saw Evie, Leo, they are former students, and they can say that I challenge them a lot.
Great, thank you. Now, Carol, tell me, where does motivation come from? What do you think? So, we've got various types of motivation before everything. We've got the extrinsic, intrinsic, I don't know, instrumental motivation, and too many different kinds. But let me know, what do you think? Where does this motivation come from? In case of learning a language, I mean.
I made a kind of list of I think there are 5 key points I find motivate my students, especially the unmotivated. Because some students are already motivated. They just want to learn the language, and whatever you do, they like it. But others are not. And I wrote, in order to answer this question, I knew you were going to ask this question. I asked my own students. I sent them a message like, what motivates you to learn English? And I was surprised to get lots of answers from them, because this was optional. Some of them said that what motivates them is what they can do with the language, like traveling, talking to people. If they can see the use of what they are learning, they are motivated. That would be one, the use of the language. Others said that they are motivated through games. They like competition. The game factor is something that motivates many people. So games would be the second word. And some of them also said that they are motivated with videos. So this generation is visual. So they need a lot of videos. So I would do without listening comprehension exercises, just listening, because that's not natural. We don't listen to people only listening. We watch them, and like the way I'm talking to you, I see you and listen to you at the same time. So we should reinforce that. And that's motivating because it's realistic. Playing a CD and asking them to listen, that's perfect in a language school with students that are already motivated and training for an international exam. But the unmotivated who are forced to study English in a school, it doesn't work for them. So I said videos, I said games, I said use, I say variety. They said that they are motivated when they don't know what the class is going to be like. It's not like they can't predict, oh, now the teacher is coming and we are doing multiple choice exercises. So when they don't know what
great.
happen, they're motivated.
Okay. Sorry for interrupting. Sorry for interrupting you. What I've heard, you told me that the unprediction. I mean something that learners cannot predict what's going on in their class in the following. Keeps them motivated. Am I right? You mean that you personally don't tell them in the beginning of the class that, okay, this is the plan, we are going to do this and that by the end of this session. You mean just keep them in a kind of situation that they don't know what's going on? You mean that?
Exactly. Not exactly, because I do tell them at the beginning of the class what we are going to do, because knowing what we are going to do is motivating too. But they don't know what's before the class. Like, I have my lesson on Tuesday, so they don't know what's going to happen on Tuesday. So it could be a day with music, a day with games, a day with videos, a day with writing. So if you follow a textbook and you go in order,
yes,
and you never do other things, they know, oh, today we read and then we do this. So they already know what's going to happen, and that's not interesting. I have this where Mariana Maggio was one of the live streams. She spoke Spanish. But she says that these series are, as a cultural object, are teaching us a lot. When you watch a series, you watch it because you don't know what's going to happen. If you already know, you don't watch it. And the lesson should be something like that. So it's okay to have a summer lesson one day, but if every single lesson is about filling the gaps, they don't want to do that. So,
yeah, I know what you mean. Okay, good. Carol, let me know why motivation is important. What do you think, based on your own experience? Yes.
I would say learning doesn't happen, or acquisition doesn't happen if you're not motivated. Maybe you remember stuff, maybe you pass tests, but I don't think you really learn. If it's not memorable.
Yes.
It's because you're motivated. So in order for acquisition to happen, or learning to be meaningful, you need some motivation. Ausbel says that one of the key components in learning meaningfully is motivation.
Great, thank you very much. Let me continue with another question. Now, let's talk about what affects this motivation. For example, now you did your best, your learners are become motivated now. Now tell me what affects that. What can boost that motivation, and what can even make it move worse and let's say destroy that motivation?
Wow. I think motivation is boosted by success, or by positive feedback, and by feeling that you are doing things right. And the problem with motivation would be routine, or if we deal with feedback in the wrong way and they feel like they are exposed or uncomfortable with the things we're doing, so that could ruin everything. So teachers and feedback givers are essential.
Exactly. Yes. I personally remember when I went to observe my colleagues, while they wanted to give feedback to their learners, they never considered their feelings. I mean, are they, I don't know, extrovert or introvert? Specifically, when you personally want to give feedback to introverted learners, you should consider their feelings, because this type of learners cannot show sometimes their real selves, and if you want to give them a kind of negative feedback, specifically on the spot while they are talking, you give them the feedback, they become even more demotivated, and they become embarrassed, and I don't know, they make a kind of barrier for themselves, so that I don't know, they escape from talking, and maybe they leave the classroom for the next session. Okay, good, thank you very much. Now, let's talk about the various types of motivation motivation, as I told you, the intrinsic, extrinsic, I don't know, instrumental. So can you elaborate just about each one of them?
Um, yeah, that's something you can read in books, I think. But I can say that there is a kind of motivation that comes with a student, and that's fantastic. And if it doesn't come with a
Yeah.
student, it's your job to try. Maybe you don't get it, but you can try. And apart from all the things I said, like videos, variety, games, and the use of whatever you're teaching, the purpose, there's one more thing that is stories. In our culture, at least, students like learning about you, about themselves, about each other. So when you use the language to tell them your own views, your own ideas, that's how you can build motivation, because they want to learn, about you. When I tell them my stories
Yeah.
about trip, I can't believe how gossipy they are. They're so interested in knowing what I did, because it's real, and why I did it, and who I did it with, and they remember. It's memorable, and they even remember the language I used to say that, but because they like the idea, and the function or whatever comes with the language itself. So they remember. I did this once. I talked about something. I assessed them in the same lesson, and a week later, they still remember the answers. And it's amazing. They didn't study. They remember because it meant something to them. So stories matter a lot.
Great, great. Thank you very much. Carol, let's talk about your own experience when you were, any one of us who become a teacher now, we used to be a student. Now, let's talk about your own experience. Were you fully motivated while learning the second language, I mean English, or no, you become motivated, I don't know, your teacher affects your feeling or encouraged you, discouraged you? What happened? How did you become interested in learning English?
Wow. I started studying English at the age of 6. I don't remember anything really. I do remember I was trained in the audiolingual method, and it was a lot of repeat. I remember memorizing dialogues, and my mom, who doesn't understand English, she was assessing my memory. That was weird.
Yeah.
I think I found the interest when with the interaction, with traveling, with movies and series. I think that's when I said, "Oh, it's useful to know English," but probably not before.
Great.
Something I had to do because my parents sent me to the school, and I had to learn, and it was non-negotiable.
Yeah.
I had to learn.
Yes, yeah, exactly, exactly. I personally remember when I was 11, I started learning English. My mother actually, let me say, forced me to learn English, and she registered me in a class. And now, what was interesting was that she didn't take me to the school, the institute, I mean. And she told me that, okay, Babak, you can go, this is the direction. She gave me the direction, and I went, and I got lost. And I got lost. Actually, yeah, I arrived late for the class. And I remember that the first word that my teacher told me, he told me, hi, how are you? I got confused because up until that time, I couldn't even understand a single word of English. So I became really demotivated. I remember I sat in the back row, and gradually, step by step, I became motivated, I don't know, by coloring, drawing something, and exactly as you told me, by various activities. I remember I became motivated in learning English. Okay, good. Now, can you tell me, do you run any kind of, I don't know, needs analysis to understand your learners before the class, so that you can create various kinds of activities for the learners to become motivated? Or no, you try to just have your own, because you told me that you are not paid enough, I don't know, do you dedicate enough time to design such a kind of material and activities for different types of learners, or no, just you use a single one?
I try. Year after year, I kind of have similar students because of a cultural thing. So they are always interested in games. I don't even need to ask them if they want to play. You see it in the class. You play a game, and they are usually, like, all of them want to play, and maybe one or two don't, and then the second time you play, they do want to play. So there are some things that might not need needs analysis, but I do consider that, especially with the kind of language I teach. As Scott said on Monday,
Oh,
I ask them what they want to say, and I include that as part of my teaching, the kinds of questions they want to ask.
Right. Yeah. What about the supervisor, the academic manager of the institute, the school that you work in? Do they expect you, or do you have any kind of meeting about, how to motivate learners, or they ask you to keep them motivated? I don't know, or no, just they think about the money and to keep the learners in order to make money. Which one is more important for them?
I'm privileged again here because in the three places where I work, the people in charge trust me a lot, so they don't question anything I do, fortunately. So they allow me to go away from the syllabus if necessary, to do stuff that is not like, imagine, in the course I'm teaching, I'm supposed to teach present perfect. It's impossible. Yeah. They don't even know present simple. They haven't learned meaningfully. So present perfect is too hard to understand if you don't have prior knowledge. So I don't deal with present perfect. So that's and the principal accepts that, and that's great. So I teach them other stuff. In fact, I would say I have like a CLIL approach rather than grammar based. So I teach them content, mainly geography, because I based my lesson on what can happen if they travel. So I teach them situations related to traveling, like checking in a hotel, buying clothes. Girls, I have lots of girls in the classroom and they love buying clothes, so that's great. And I also talk about places, so they learn about, places, cultures, food, stuff you can do in other places, and the language comes as a means to that end. I don't focus on the language.
Mm-hmm. Great. Yes. Okay, thank you. Now, let's keep up with a very, very important stage in motivation, which is sustaining that motivation. How can we sustain that motivation? We did our best. I don't know, there were too many learners after, 10 sessions, one whole course. So we did our best. We made that motivation. Now, let me know what actually helps us to keep that motivation, to sustain the motivation.
Well,
what factors, I mean?
Yeah, I know. It's very hard, and I find it very hard to sustain it all year round. We have a whole year with our students, and in Argentina, we divide the year into 3 periods of 3 months each. And there's like a mark at the end of each period. And if they don't do well in one of the periods, they need to make up for it at the end of the year. So what I try to do, I think that students like the way I teach at the beginning, and they get tired eventually. So by the 6th month, they don't want to learn anything anymore because they are exhausted. Nothing is motivating anymore at the end. But I do try to keep something. I don't do everything at the beginning. So for 3 months, I do kind of teaching. For example, I focus more on, and then 3 months later, I try to introduce something new, a new way of learning, different games or different apps, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. I personally, and what I personally do is to show them a kind of successful language learner. I keep them to visualize a kind of successful language to learner. For example, I tell them, okay, if you learn English, imagine that you are, an advanced learner, someone who's got the degree. You can actually think about the job opportunities, whatsoever. You can be a teacher, you can travel abroad, you can connect with people without any mistakes, something like that, to make a kind of perfect language to learner. Something that I personally believe helped them a lot. What about you? You mean that what I mean is that nothing is more motivating than success, as you told me. When they become successful, automatically they become motivated. You mentioned for sustaining the motivation, what can we do? Just doing various activities, change the types of teaching. Is that a good way or not? Changing the method of teaching, does it help or not?
Well, I would define myself as a CLT teacher, and that's an approach, not a method. So the way you teach depends on its decision making, depending on the students you have. So there's not a method. So what I do is do different stuff, but allows me to teach them. I have a way of assessing that is called norm-based assessment instead of criteria-based assessment. So instead of imagining the perfect student and asking all of them to go through the same tests to reach that level, I do this norm-based assessment. So it's like a gamified class. I give them things to do, and each thing I translate into points. For example, this activity is worth 1 point, 2 points, 3 points. And then they get, like, I don't know, 100 points in a period. The person with 100 points will be like the person with the 10. We go from 1 to 10 in our marks. And the rest are calculated accordingly. So some people get points playing games, other people get points coming to class, other people get points passing formal tests. But not everybody needs to do the same thing. So that's easier to be successful, because there's at least you can do something. So maybe you're not good at grammar, you don't pass my tests, but you are good at remembering vocabulary or at playing games collaboratively or stuff. So I do lots of things. I assign points to those things. They get the points. For example, when we play a game, the winners get 10 points, the second ones get 5 points, and the other ones 3 points. Everybody gets points because they are playing. So if you're good at playing games, you can get your points through the games. And maybe if you're good at remembering vocabulary, you will pass my mini tests. I have mini tests every lesson. I ask them to memorize.
Very good. That's a fantastic way of assessing your learner. So you don't only rely on the paper-based test. No. You want them to do something in the real life. I mean, you ask them to do various kinds of activities, not just the paper-based questions. Okay, great. Thank you.
I introduce WhatsApp challenges. We have a WhatsApp group, and at any time of the day, whenever I'm free, I record a question, and the first person to answer my question in English gets 1 point, for example. So some students who are not interested in the lesson, they participate in these activities, and they get points. And we are communicating, because they have to listen to me, they need to understand what I say, they need to answer. So, and that's a way of collecting points that is not that. Because some of them rebel and they just don't want to do anything in the class, and they do stuff outside the class if you want.
Yes, I exactly understand what you mean, what you say. Okay, thank you, Carol. If there is any more point you would like to mention, I would be very glad to hear that. If not, thank you very much. Thank you for accepting our invitation and taking out your precious time to attend our live talk on Instagram.
Okay. I think I said everything, but what I think that motivates students, as you said, achievement through norm-based assessment is something we should consider, and bonding with them. When you tell them stuff about yourself, they listen to you and they try to understand. If you play the CD about Susan in another country, that's not interesting.
Yeah, I know what you mean. And also, the last factor that I would like to mention is self-disclosure. It also can help a lot. I personally talk about my own. I tell them some of the real stories of my past experiences in life, in learning English. So they become very motivated. I mean, I can build my rapport this way easily by self-disclosure.
Definitely. Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay. So, thank you very much. Thank you. That was a great talk. So, I hope for the next session, I mean, our following lives, our friends also support us here. Thank you. That's all. If you would like to have any closing, I'm here.
Oh, just thank you a lot for this. I believe that exchange helps us learn as teachers, because once you finish your training, you're on your own.
Yeah.
And so the only way to keep learning, it would be like this, like talking to people doing the same thing.
Exactly. Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And be safe.
Okay, please keep the video in your IGTV so we can see it later on.
Of course, yes. I will save it. I will save it right now.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Good. See you then. Bye.